All right, so hello. This is the start of a kind of chess mini-series, and so I am starting a YouTube channel on chess, but I'm basically only doing 8 videos for now, just to see if people like the format, and just seeing how it goes. My inspiration for this content is the amazing channel of Tony Rotella, which I will link in the description. So I am currently in Corsica doing the Porticcio Open, and I am doing these videos just to showcase the whole of what a chess player is thinking during an actual chess game, and because basically I've seen a lot of chess recaps and videos and reviews where people go through their games but don't actually give all the variations. So I thought this was an actual interesting topic for a video, just to see what is seen and what is missed by players, and what are the actual gray areas where people don't know. So today I played 2 games. I'm going to show both of them. So this video is going to be round 2. I missed round 1, but I am playing 8 rounds starting round 2. So today was a 2-round day, which is pretty exhausting. I played two games which were both more than 3 hours. And I have checked none of these games with a computer, so I have absolutely no clue what the actual objective assessment of the position is. So this is kind of a pure version of what chess is like when you're actually sitting down at the chessboard. So let's go through the first game. So I was paired against a younger opponent, and so basically in preparation I had identified that he plays either the Selislav and the Grunfeld, and I had prepared both. I went into the whole tournament with basically no preparation, and I prepare a little bit for each opponent. Last year I got completely screwed in this tournament. I lost almost every single game, and so this year I came with close to no ambitions and just wanted to play for fun. And so let's see how it turns out. So I am white in this game. I played my usual d4. He plays knight f6, denies my pawn from coming to e4. I play c4, g6. Basically, I am now aiming to seize the center, and one move before I can actually get there, he plays d5, which is called the Grunfeld defense. So for the longest time I have played this variation against the Grunfeld defense, which is called the Russian system, where actually white does get the whole center, and very nice development. This position is actually still equal, by the way. And this is also what he was expecting from me. But for this, a few weeks or a few months ago, I prepared a whole new system, and so I played this game. So in this, I kind of spoiled the ending there. So in this position, so this is a classical Grunfeld main line. So in this position, white has a very nice pawn center, and will have very natural squares for the pieces. The knight will come to f3 or e2. The bishop has very nice developing squares, this bishop as well. And black will try to basically castle and put as much pressure on this pawn as possible. You see that the bishop is already hitting the pawn, and white will be very hard pressed to do anything about the pressure, because basically whenever the pawn moves, there is a check, and black picks up the rook in the corner. So white is kind of forced to endure the pressure, and this is what makes this opening viable for black, where you actually see the center. So all of this is of course still theory. We're playing these moves almost instantly. So knight f3, c5, and rook b1. So this used to be a very trendy main line in the 1990s. This is a move that has two important purposes. First of all, if white plays d5, the pawn here will be lost, but you are no longer losing the rook in the corner. So playing d5 is actually an option in several lines. Second use is we're actually hitting this pawn, making it harder for this bishop to develop. Alright, so black castles, bishop e2, take on d4, this is still the main line, and queen a5. So here there are two main options for white. There's the option for people who do some serious opening preparation work. They play bishop d2, sacrifice this pawn, and castle. And here basically white is fully developed, has castled, and the rook is still eyeing the pawn on b7. And basically white here has full compensation, but no more than this. So this is actually an equal position. This is still a very theory-intensive position. Lots of people have studied this, but I am a more lazy person, and so I played queen d2, which actually forces an endgame. Take, take. And so this endgame is actually, let's be honest, it's a very dull and boring endgame. My second game will be a lot more fun. So while this is a dull endgame, I found out during my when I actually prepared for this line a few weeks to months ago that white has very serious chances to exert some slight pressure. So let's see what this looks like in practice. So the bishop was hindered by the defense of this pawn, so it makes sense for black to play b6. And aim to develop the bishop and stare at this weak pawn. And now that the black has played b6, it makes no more sense for the rook to be on b1. It takes control of the open file and wants to infiltrate on c7. So bishop b7. So now if you infiltrate on c7, bishop takes c4 comes, and basically here black has already solved all of his problems and is probably already slightly better. So this is not the way to go. The way to go is to play bishop d3 and protect this pawn, and still keep this open, the option of this fork open for a later time. Now black develops the knight. This is a slightly unusual square, but it has two benefits. First of all, it prevents rook c7. And second, it keeps the bishop very, very nicely staring at this pawn. So this knight is actually not misplaced on the rim. King e2. All of this is I am still in preparation here. Rook d8. So my opponent was already thinking at this point. I think he started to think around playing. I think knight a6 was his first move where he was out of the book. But I was still in the book. I played king e2. Rook d8, black is threatening to take, take, and take. So basically winning a pawn on d4. And if I play d5, basically I have just handed black a very nice square for the knight on c5, which would be a big no-no. So we play rook c4, we defend the pawn. Right? It was attacked twice, so now we're defending it twice. And my opponent started thinking. Because in this position it's actually a bit difficult to find out what to do. I actually played a blitz game a few days ago where my opponent played rook d7, I played rook c1 and rook d8, and we didn't play it until the end, but it turned out that black had a lot of pressure here. And actually for this game I checked my analysis, and it turns out that rook a4 is very strong, pointing out that this knight here is a bit fragile. It has no squares here, and if it goes to c7, then the pawn on a7 is hanging. So this would be a very nice thing. But of course my opponent is a very strong player and didn't fall for this. He played b5, which is the best move by far. And so basically this removes the defender from this pawn. The rook has no way to stay along this rank because all of these three squares are covered. And so the rook has to go back to c2, and bishop takes d4. And now I play bishop takes b5, and this was my last move out of preparation. Preparation stopped here. And when playing this at the board, So my focus in preparation was not exactly on this specific subline, but basically when playing this at the board, I thought, well, what if he takes on e4 basically, which he ended up playing, and I thought, I remember the computer evaluation, and this very probably fails for a very concrete reason. And so basically my job now is to identify what that reason is. So first of all, this is hanging, but this is also hanging. So basically if I take on a6, takes on c2, and I can already resign. So this is out of the question. Second idea, I could probably try taking on d4. If black takes on c2, I am very happy about this position. So basically now let's say knight c5. I have basically two bishops for a rook and a pawn, which is an equal-ish trade. But I think in this position the bishops are to be slightly preferred. I thought of this line during the game, but I don't know what the actual assessment is. My assessment would be that it's close to equal. But the real problem with knight takes d4 here is rook takes d4. So now this is still a threat, and it seems that there are no satisfactory moves. So if I play rook c4, for instance, just to try to trade off some material, bishop d3 hits, take, king e3, take here, king here, take here, and I can resign because black is a piece up. So rook c4 will not cut it. Bishop e3 is probably insufficient. I cannot remember now why. Yes, rook b4, and I have gotten out. Black has gotten out of the attack. And if I take on a6, bishop takes c2, and I can resign because I have a bishop for a rook, which is I am down the exchange basically. So it appears the most serious move is king e3, when rook d3 is not possible because I would simply take it. Bishop takes c2, rook takes here would be more than acceptable for white, right? Something like this would be very nice. But black can try rook d8, and basically here everything seems to fail for white. Again, the rook is under attack, so I have to do something about it, and at some point something is going to give. So basically, if I want to keep control over this bishop, the rook has to go here, else I am losing the bishop, right? But here basically simply knight to c5, and basically what have I accomplished here now? I mean, the whole position is kind of ugly. Black's pieces are very centralized, active, and black actually has an extra pawn. If you look, this is the only file without a pawn, so the position has kind of stabilized, and I am just worse. So for this reason, I rejected knight takes d4, and instead I played the only other move that looked a bit decent, which was rook c4. So I still don't know what the correct move is. I haven't looked at this with a computer. So rook c4. So now bishop f3 is forced. Basically, if he plays anything else, basically I am right now attacking this twice and attacking this twice. And if the bishop moves, I am just taking here. If he takes here, hoping to remove a defender from this, I am still winning. And this would be a crappy line anyway for other reasons. So in this position, basically, he has to deal with the pin on the two bishops. And final reason for why he has to take on f3 is that e5 protecting both bishops would fail to simply this, and black can resign because white is a piece up. So now bishop takes f3 is forced, and when thinking about playing rook c4, I only saw that it would be possible to take with the g pawn, but actually when arriving in this position, I saw that it was possible to take with the king. So basically what I had seen here is that this particular tactic, so right now if he takes on f2, I can simply take on a6, and I am a piece up, and black can resign. But in this position, bishop takes f2. If I simply take it back, there comes rook takes f2, and rook takes a2. This knight is defended, black is up 3 pawns, and I can resign. So this would be horrible. But in this position, when deciding between g takes f3, keeping contact with the bishop, and king takes, I realized that after bishop f2, I am not obliged to take. I can actually play something like bishop f4, and I am attacking this, I am attacking this, he will lose one of the pieces, and I am basically winning, and black can resign. Another thing that has to be said is that bishop a5 attacking the rook is actually a false good idea, because bishop b6 actually fails in this specific variation. Here black is more than alright, and in fact he's already close to winning, because the rooks are very strong. And in this variation, black is also not necessarily close to close to winning, because he's 2 pawns up. In fact, I think here white is dead lost. All right. So I noticed that I could play king takes f3, and I saw that. So now, just to recap, we have played rook c4 because our rook was attacked. This knight has been attacked the whole time, right? But we couldn't take it first because black was attacking something of higher value. Then black was checking us. And now finally this is attacked, and black is facing no more immediate threats. So he simply moves the knight to a safe square. So it's kind of time to take stock of what has happened. Basically, it seems that black has an extra pawn, and it seems that it's kind of here to stay. So this is not something that I was happy about, especially not against a higher rated opponent. But then again, white's pieces are kind of sitting active in the middle of the board. Even the king is nice and centralized, so I was kind of feeling confident at this stage of the game. And I thought I had done everything right so far, so I don't see why specifically I should have problems in this position. And when he took on e4, it seems to me that there has to be some kind of technical refutation, and I thought this was quite close to it. So I played bishop b4, seeing that, for instance, so now this knight I'm threatening this knight, and more insidiously, I am also threatening, let's say if black makes a shit move, take, and when black comes here to fork the 2 bishops, bishop c6 takes care of business, kind of. Actually, during the game, I noticed at some point that he would have rook f5 here, and now rook c8, which would be a pity. Even though here I do have this, so probably rook b8 is more than enough. But in any case, black should be significantly better in this kind of positions. Anyway, this did not come to pass because he made a sensible move. Another thing that I was thinking about, which was I thought this was how the game would most likely go, is this takes, and basically now I have recovered the bishop is nice and stable on d4. I have recovered the pawn that I lost on e4, and now everything's good, position's equal, and we should slowly head towards an equal endgame at some point. So this is what I was expecting. The other move that I looked at was, of course, rook c8, defending the knight. But then I have rook d1, putting increased pressure on the bishop. And basically here, black is in a very bad position, because basically if he removes the bishop, take, and I can already take here, and I'm just winning a piece. If he removes the knight like this, I will take this at the end of the line, and again I should be very slightly better in the endgame because I have the two bishops versus a bishop and knight. Again, I'm spoiling the ending. And so rook c8, rook d1. So yeah, this was kind of what I was thinking, and here I think that white is probably very close to winning, or at least has a very, very comfortable game. Alright, so in any case, so here I was actually being quite confident. If knight e6, I have a nice endgame. I am threatening the knight, and it seems that many of his moves don't achieve much, don't really help him keep some sort of advantage, right? And then he played knight d3, and my whole world collapsed, because basically black is threatening knight e5, check, and wins the rook. And he's also threatening my pawn here with both the knight and the bishop, and he's also very probably going to take this bishop on b4 and basically stabilize the whole extra pawn situation, which I was trying to remedy this whole time. So first order of business is to stop this knight from coming to e5. The only forcing option that black has, that I have, is bishop takes e7. But here, basically, I would face big problems. So basically, bishop takes e7. If he does not play knight e5, basically, I am good to go, right? If he plays something like rook here, I can play bishop c6, which is more than enough. So basically here has to go for knight e5. I thought king e2 takes here, and knight d6, and here, so basically this is hanging, and yeah, I think I can resign here. So this is not a good thing, and king e4 would be even worse, because take, and now check and take the bishop. So let's say this, check. Although actually, yes, I am losing every single pawn here. All right, so my initial reaction when seeing knight d3 was that I am in a lot of trouble. So I should at least get out of this fork, and so I played king e2. Thinking that if he goes knight f4 to check and threaten some kind of fork, I can just go back, and I don't mind this. The one thing I was really afraid of was knight takes f2, when I had planned to play rook f1, and I was thinking that he might go knight g4, where he's threatening both the pawn and to go here and fork my two other rooks. And I am in a very bad situation. And during the game, I did not understand why he didn't go for this. And after the game, I understood that actually here I could play rook f4 when actually the tables have turned and I am winning. So it makes eminently good sense that he did not go for this, and instead simply took on b4 and played rook c8. So rook c8 is very bad news for me. So basically, this is kind of nearing an opposite colored bishop situation. I should make a point about the whole strategic situation. Basically, if I can trade off all of the rooks, I should be probably able to hold, because opposite colored bishops have very drawish tendencies, and only one extra pawn is not going to be enough to win with opposite colored bishops. If the bishop were on the same color complex, then this would be a completely different situation. I will see in actually the game that I played in round 3. This is round 2 because I missed round 1. And so here, my opponent is threatening rook c2 and to take here, and also rook c2 and to take this pawn here, which is already covered by the bishop. So this is a bad situation, and furthermore it's exacerbated by 2 more things which I discovered. First of all, if I play bishop d3 to prevent rook c2, it's pretty easy to see that bishop f2 is killing me, because basically now black is up 2 pawns and is very close to getting a third one. Right, rook a4, rook c2. This is very bad news. I mean, I stopped calculating at bishop takes f2 because it's clear that black is winning here. So if we want to prevent rook c2, bishop d3 doesn't work. Perhaps bishop a4 will work, but this does also not work because of bishop c3, and now the rook is infiltrating like this, and we'll take the pawn on a2, and this will also be the end of the world because I will be down 2 pawns, and being down 2 pawns is a death sentence. So none of these 2 moves work. During the game I thought I might be able to get away with playing rook d1, which I calculated in depth. So my thought process was this. It seems that I did not calculate this all of the way. So if I play rook d2, of course I am dead lost. Checks and simply takes the rook. This is over. But I can actually play king here, walking into the discover check. But if he checks me, I can take on c2. And if he takes on d4, his rook is hanging and I'm winning. And if he takes on d1, actually during the game I had a moment of blindness, and here I missed that I could take the rook, and this would be the opposite colored bishop ideal case scenario that I was really hoping for, and which I completely missed. So this is one of the many things that I missed during the game. So it would go like this: rook takes, and this is very likely a draw. So rook here, king d3, and so basically this bishop has no good checks. So I thought rook c3, and then because basically here if he goes pawn hunting, this is very bad for him. Right here he loses the bishop. White is winning here because of the extra bishop. So basically he has to keep attacking me. And here, if I play king d2, now he can play bishop c5, king c3, and now bishop c4. And actually, this is the one that I missed, not the other one. I missed that I could play king c2 here and to actually defend the rook. The only thing that I calculated was the forced takes and rook takes d1 when indeed I am lost, and the rook will happily go pawn hunting, and the bishop is completely insufficient to defend. So I rejected this whole rook d1 line based on this one specific line, check, and I missed king c2. So this would have been the easy draw that I was hoping for. It seems in this position that I was not as close to an easy draw than I imagined, because I talked this over after the game, and it seems that black has a lot of initiative that I didn't account for. And so basically after rook c8, I decided that my best way to avoid rook c2 was to simply play rook c4. So obviously rook c4 comes with its own load of problems. So I would of course welcome a trade of bishops here. I am one step closer to achieving this optimal opposite colored bishop scenario. He played rook b8, sorry, and basically whenever this bishop moves, he will check and take the pawn. So my bishop kind of has to stay plugged, and what's worse is if I play like this, I have just pinned myself and my rook is going to be lost. If I play this, same thing, I cannot play bishop d3 to cover the rook, so my bishop or my rook are lost. And in this position I thought about playing rook d1, but this would be a horrible situation, because here in this specific position, all of this is possible, and now black is up a pawn in a king and pawn endgame, and this is very probably losing. Basically, I think I have absolutely no chance of holding this, especially against a higher rated opponent. A single pawn is more than enough to win in king and pawn endgames. I mean, most often. All right. So rook d1 fails, and I think one of the reasons that rook d1 fails is that I cannot get a nice rook endgame, which I will point out in just a moment. I played a4 because of the technicality, because now he plays a6, very kindly asking my bishop to move so that he can go come and kill me. And now I played rook d1, and the difference is this. Now I want to, if he takes on a5, I want to take rook d4, and once we trade, basically in this position it's a 4 versus 3 on the king side, and this I can probably hold. I think I have decent holding chances. I think I would hold this 70% of the time. So this is kind of the best case scenario of a game that has already gone wrong. Another thing that I calculated during the game was this specific line where instead of taking here, black simply goes ahead and plays b4. Here I would go king d2 here, and the king is just in time to step in front of the pawn and stop it. And at some point, I'm going to push my pawn all the way, and his rook is going to have to come to the a file. So let's show what it looks like. Rook here, takes, take, and basically, okay, not right now. So let's say because it's defended, take. And so basically in this situation, let's say he attacks my pawn, and let's say I defend it. So in this situation, this is my dream scenario of the 4 versus 3 on the king side. Basically, my king can come and support my pawns, and I can just kind of sit tight and hope for the best. And I think I have decent chances of holding this. So this is the essential reason why I played a4 in this situation before going rook d1. It's in order to trade off these two pawns and to no longer have them on the board. Unfortunately for me, he played e5 here, which is correct, and I took on a6 because at this point now the bishop really does have to move, and this is, I mean, why not gain a pawn in the process? Rook here, rook d2, take. Fortunately, all of my important pieces are on light squares, so the only interesting discovered check with him is to take my pawn here, and king e2. And if the bishop moves anywhere, let's say d4, my goal was what I wanted was to play rook c8, pinning the rook and forcing a trade of rooks. And now this is an opposite colored bishop endgame, which is basically as close to the draw as it gets. Whenever you have less pawns. Basically, the dream situation when where you're down some pawns, is you want to have an opposite colored bishop endgame. So in this position here, I think I would hold this 90% of the time, or more like 95% of the time against my opponent. And against a grandmaster, I think I have very decent chances of holding this. So this would be the ideal situation for me. But of course, he knew about this, and he played bishop g1, which is the only move that attacks one more pawn, and that would possibly dissuade me from playing rook c8 and trading off. So here I had a long think, basically between playing I had a big decision to make. Should I play h3 and basically keep on playing? And so here he has 4 pawns, I have 3. We have an opposite colored bishop situation, but it's not yet very important. My pawn is very likely to be blockaded on a dark square, most likely a7. And he's going to push his pawns in some way. He's going to move up his position. And basically I thought there would be many tactical opportunities for him at some point in this endgame. Basically, at this point in the game, I have been tactically outclassed in every respect, and I basically only held on because of pure luck. So this is kind of the situation where I thought I should change the character of the game and make him prove that he has a win. And so after a 15-minute think, I think this was my longest think of the game, I played rook c8 because I wanted to assess. So basically now I'm forcing this, and he gets the extra pawn here. So I had to choose between the endgame of playing h3, basically keeping the extra pawn but also keeping the rooks, which increases the winning chances for black, and going for the opposite colored bishop endgame with 1 pawn less, as I did in the game. So during the game, I was very unsure about whether this is a draw or not. It's very, very hard to judge. Basically, my pawn can only be stopped on one of these 2 squares. Most likely, the bishop will not be able to reach this square in time on a5, so it's going to be blocked on a7. But that means that the dark squared bishop will not be able to leave this diagonal, because as soon as it leaves, I play a7, and then I get a queen, and then I am winning. So his bishop is restricted to only one diagonal. And my plan was to play g4 here, and this kind of already blocks in a lot of his possible activity. For instance, if he plays f5 here, I can simply take, and this is already a dead draw. I will simply park my king on a light square and just basically endlessly shuffle around on the light squares, and he can do nothing about it. So it's kind of really hard for black to make any kind of progress in this endgame. Here again, I could play something like bishop f5 and or king e3, king here, and king here, and black cannot really make progress, right? I am blocking these 2 pawns because of the king, and the bishop is more than able to take care of this pawn by itself. And the king, if the king wants to go here, we can always put the bishop on f3 and prevent the king from accessing this square. So from afar, it seems that white would have very decent chances to hold this endgame, but of course you can never be sure about this. I thought before going in this position, before going for rook c8, I thought that the most likely way for black to win the endgame would be for the king to somehow for black to play f6, for the king to somehow make its way to h4 or g3, and to play h5 and basically have the king escort the pawn up the board. where my king would be on e4. So basically, let's put this on the board. f6, king e4, king h6. Let's pass for a few moves. Hop. King g3, and now h5, and the pawn is running to a queen square. Of course, here we can insert some moves like this, right? But this is insignificant next to this, which is kind of the main action, right? I suspect this exact position might be a draw, but I am not totally sure. No, I think this is winning. Yeah, this must be winning because it's possible to take, and whenever this pawn is taken, here we have two pawns that are running freely. All right. So I thought this would be the most likely way to win for black, and indeed this is quite close. But as we shall see, it's not so easy. So g4, he played bishop g1. So to me it makes, I think his next move, if I would give him a move, is bishop b6. And instead of blocking my pawn on the a7 square, he would block it on a5. And so this opens up less tactical possibilities for me. And so I immediately went a5 just to deny him this option and to be sure that my pawn would get to a6. And so that a7 would be a constant threat for him. King g7, king f3, king f6, king e4. Both of us activate our kings. And now basically he cannot move his king again. Note by the way, the bishop is controlling this pawn, is defending it. Note that his king cannot keep control of this pawn. So basically, as soon as the king moves, if this pawn is not defended, I can take it, and which increases my drawing chances by a lot. So he played bishop d4, a7, and now the quintessential line would be, example of what I talked about, would be king g5, a7, take, and take here. And I think this is a complete and utter draw. So for instance, h5, take, and I can, for instance, I think this is very close to what happened in the game, but I can basically just run my king to the h1 square. And so this, and it is well known in chess that a rook pawn can only promote if the final square is controlled. If the square is controlled by the bishop. In here, this is not the case, and so basically I can simply park my king on h1, and whenever he plays this pawn, I can just sacrifice my bishop for this, and this is an instant draw. There is no way black can win this position because the bishop does not control this. So this, noticing that his bishop was of the quote-unquote wrong color, was one of the factors that made me go for the rook c8 endgame. So, king e4, bishop d4. Now he guards this pawn in order to be able to move the king. But now I am close to distracting the bishop, so the king still cannot move. So he played h6. And now, knowing that the king cannot move, I played king d5, still keeping an eye on this pawn. And here he started to make some sort of face of, I kind of have no idea what to do. And he started to have some sort of psychological struggle, because again, he cannot move his king. If he puts the pawn on this square, if he plays g5, I can play king e4. And basically, I am the master of the light squares, and I will remain master of the light squares for the rest of the game. So this is a big no-no for him. This is completely unthinkable. But he cannot move the king. He cannot move this pawn because I simply take it. He cannot really. I mean, he can move the bishop, but like, what will it bring? So he cannot move this. Cannot move this. He can move this, but it's not of any importance. If he cannot move the king, he cannot move this pawn. He cannot move this pawn. So this is kind of the only pawn he can move. But if he does so, we're getting in a situation where my bishop is completely controlling this pawn. His king still cannot move, and basically he still has to wonder how he's going to win this game. So here he was kind of out of ideas. He played bishop a7. Let's wait a second. He played bishop a7, bishop b8, and here he looked completely dumbfounded. He played bishop a7 again, and bishop f2, bishop d4, and finally he played h5. Take. I put my bishop on h3 because why not? It was important, by the way, to make sure that I did this with the king and did not play bishop f7, because here he would be able to move his king and attack my bishop with tempo, meaning that my bishop now has to move, and if it moves, now he can play f6, and now he has made some sort of progress. I don't know if this is enough to win the game, but it's something. So I want to deny him this chance, so I played I cannot move, this square is forbidden, and these two squares are already, e6 and f5 already not possible because they are protected, and so it's important to do this action with the king. Finally he plays h5, bishop h3, and now that he has moved the king, I can force him to lose control of this square. So I played a7, bishop takes, king takes. And now, if my king is able to make it back all the way to h1, this is a forced draw. But unfortunately for me, his king is more active. So this is kind of the worst possible situation for me. Because his king will permanently be able to deny me access to the h1 square, and he has two pawns which are rolling. I have one one thing that is going well for me in this position, which is that so this is the most important rule to remember for bishop endgames, is that you need to be able to defend all of the pawns on one single diagonal. And so in this game, this is going to be this diagonal here. The pawns will never be able to cross that diagonal, or they will simply get taken by the bishop. So he played f6, king e4. I want to go back to h1. King f4. So now I cannot go back because my bishop is attacked. I played bishop e6. But now he plays king h3, and I cannot go back, and he's threatening to simply march on. I play king f5, so now if he plays h4, I can simply take here, and h3, I sacrifice the bishop, and this is a draw. Yeah, black has insufficient material to mate. So here he played bishop d4, which makes sense. And I thought at this point that, alright, my king can no longer come to h1, that ship has sailed. I will not take this pawn on f6, that ship has also sailed. And basically this pawn is marching, and he will be able to bring the pawn to h2 without me being able to do anything about it. When the pawn reaches h3, I could think about sacrificing the bishop, but then the king would simply take it, and so let's say in this kind of scenario, right? Let's say bishop b2, bishop d7, take. Here, this situation is dead lost. The pawn is defended, and black will simply kick the king out and just advance the pawn. So king here, king here. The pawn is marching, and there's nothing white can do. So at this point in the game, I thought I was basically lost. I was not happy about my performance because I thought I had come very close to saving the game. And I played bishop d5 because, you know, I want to control the promotion square. And here, for some reason, he went into a very deep think. Let me look how long it was after I played bishop d5. He thought for 11 minutes here. And he started making faces of despair. and of very deep thought, and it was obvious that he was looking for something and could not find it. And I understood that he did not actually find a way to win this by force. And so this gave me courage and confidence that there was actually a way to save the game. And so I began looking, and I understood what it was all about. So basically, let's see. So he plays h4. Basically, his plan is to put the king on g1 and promote this pawn, right? And then when the bishop takes, he can take it. But the only square to promote, to be able to take the bishop after the pawn has promoted, so when the pawn promotes, it is on h2, the king cannot access these light squares. So the only square to do this is g1. So in order for this pawn to promote and for the king to win, for black to win, the king has to reach g1. Alright? But we can actually make sure that the king never reaches g1. Basically, it's all a game of does the king reach g1 or not. If I can prevent the king from reaching g1, I will actually be able to hold the draw. So I played king e4, and I think I am saving the game because of this critical tempo. I am hitting the bishop. He played bishop c5, and I played king d3, and I am actually coming in like this in order to hold the position. If the king manages to come all the way to f1, it's a draw. So let's see how that would look like. Let's say h3, king g1, king f1. I mean king h2, king f1. And now his king can only step back out like this. So his only way to try to win would be to play f5. Let's say I play a waiting move with the bishop. And here, whenever the king comes back out and tries to threaten the pawn to come here, I play this. And if the pawn comes here, I take it, and I am holding easily. And if he plays here, I can just make a waiting move with the bishop, and the king cannot come to g1, right? If he plays like this, I can still forbid the king from coming to g1. All right, so this is kind of the game we are playing now. So he plays king f2, and this will be all fine and dandy. But for the king to be able to, for the king coming to g1 to be effective, the pawn has to be already on h3. If the pawn is on h3 and the king on g1, black is winning. But actually, we'll be able to prevent this. And in this position, white has exactly one move to hold, which is bishop e6. Stopping both of the pawns. And the king is too far. The king does not have enough room to... the king is overworked. It cannot keep both my king from accessing f1 and be close enough to help this pawn to advance. And so, now that I've explained the drawing mechanism, at this point it was clear that both of us understood how to make a draw with white. But I think he was very angry about how the game had gone for him, because he had been very close to winning. And basically he proceeded to start what I could only describe as chess torture, or the chess equivalent of torture, and which basically goes like this. Keeping the position alive and just playing on, and daring me to make the only move that holds the game every single time for the next 50 moves, which he proceeded to do. And so from now on, the game has no longer much of an interest. It only has some more interest here. So king g2. If I try to come in to f1, now he will actually play h3, and I will not be in time, because now that he has h3, he will be able to go h2 and king g1 in some order, and I will basically lose. So if he plays h3, I will lose, and I cannot prevent it. So king e2 would lose, but so the only move to actually hold is here. And if he plays king g3, I can play king e2 and king f1, right? So he plays king f1, And again, we play bishop e6, highlighting that the king is too far to help the pawns advance. And now basically it becomes a game of cat and mouse. So basically it becomes a game of cat and mouse, where I basically always prevent his pawns from advancing, and whenever he dares to come too close, I check him. And if he ever steps on one of these squares, I must hurry to go to f1. So here I simply make, in this position, my bishop is already doing all that it's doing, highlighting that the king is too far to help these pawns advance. So I just make a waiting move. For the rest of the game, the bishop is actually going to wander along these squares, which means that on every single move I have two options. And if I pick the wrong one, I'm losing. And basically he tested me for 50 moves. So which looks like this. I will show it rather quickly. Check, check. Now the king is close enough to help the pawn moves, helps the pawn move. So we check it and we go back. Check. Now the king is again too far, so we go back. Check, and we go back. Check, and we go back. But basically, if I miss only one check, if I make a stupid move at some point, for instance, if I meet some king g2 with king e2, I will be dead lost. And he had a lot of talent in being able to avoid a threefold repetition, which would allow me to claim a draw. And the only way for this kind of game to end is with the 50 move rule, which is basically if there are no pawn advances or no captures within 50 moves, the game is declared to be drawn. So basically this is what I was looking for, and so the game lasted 110 moves. Oh, sorry, only 99 moves. All right. And basically at this point I was able to claim the threefold repetition because this exact version of the position has occurred 3 times, and so we made a draw. And my first game ended in a draw. So I think this was a pretty long video. I don't remember when I started recording this, but it's already getting pretty late. So if you like this, leave a comment. It's always nice. And I'll see on the YouTube algorithm whether people like this kind of content. And so yeah, so let's see how it does, and see you next time. See you for the next video actually.